what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Burn It Down with Kim Brown. This is the safe space where we set oppression ablaze. Hopefully, I hope we at least singeing oppression. I don't know if we actually quite burning it. It might be starting to smoke. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we need some more kindling, or we need that wind to catch the flame the right way. I'm not sure if we're quite burning, but we're doing our best. So anyway, we're going to keep striking these matches until one of them catch. Y'all, thank you guys so much for making the time. I've got a good show in store for you today. A couple stories coming locally for me, some of which has some national prominence, and I wanted to get into at this point, you guys, the police are just could they continue to make the case why they should abolish themselves, which we know would not happen, not in the ways in which we envisioned. It'd be nice if they just lay down their arms and surrender, but we know that's not going to happen. But they continue to publicly demonstrate why they are utterly useless, incompetent, just unable to do the things that they are singularly funded and resourced to do. Sad story out of Baltimore, but I get that coming up in a bit. You guys make your way on in. Of course, you know we got plenty of room. We get a few up in ya. They don't usually be packed though. So but I don't. That's how I prefer it actually. Actually, I'll tell you guys a quick story. So maybe I've told this story before. I'm getting to be a certain age, so I do tend to. I'm beginning to repeat myself. So I believe, but in community college, because that is where I began my um low aiming academic career. And that's not a diss to community colleges, because community colleges have put out some fine folks. I'm just not one of those folks. But um, at my community college beginnings, I took introduction to public speaking at Howard Community College there in Columbia, Maryland. You may be familiar with the town. Uh, and I failed intro to public speaking. How many times? Oh, yeah, it was definitely more than once. I do believe I failed intro to public speaking two times. And I think I should go back and revisit. I think they need to maybe change my grade. But I will say this: I did not do well at that class for public speaking for a number of reasons, and the first and foremostly is because I was outright terrified to speak in front of any size audience. Like our younger, I had performance anxiety for certain. I was just way too self-conscious. I did not I did not like a lot of people looking at me. It just made me feel not centered, shall we say. And but I eventually got over that to a certain extent. Like I do have the ability to speak in front of a crowd now, though I will say it is much easier, I think, to speak in front of a large group of people than it is a small group of people, because with a small group of people, you are seeing and feeling every single eyeball. and and you have to be exceedingly comfortable within yourself to not be rattled by that. You know what I mean? So, and not even to say that I have achieved some level of comfort within myself. I just push past it. I've just that's ugh, sadly that's been my mantra. Just push through it. Just if you can get through this, a million moments of that, right? If you can get through this moment, okay, you got through that one. Okay, the next one. If you can get through this moment, you know, it's not actual bravery. It's must do. So anyway, thanks everybody for checking in. Teresa, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited to see you guys. Peace to Lady Alex. What's going on, Latif? Thank you for making the time. Um, hey Damien, what's up, Stoner Loner? Oh, let me say this really quick. I'm gonna hop into the stories in a second. Can I thank Courtney the Stallion and Quaker Socialist Anarchist for your very generous Cash App donations today, the both of you. And the funny thing is, y'all don't know this, but I know this. Y'all's Cash Apps came within minutes of each other, which was like, I was already jazzed when the first one came through, right? And I was like, what the fuck is going like, and but in a what the fuck in a good way, right? Like I was just so humbled and so appreciative that you both thought about supporting this channel on payday. And it really meant a lot. So shout out to Quaker Anarchist Socialist and to Courtney the Stallion because your support is extremely appreciated and I am just very grateful that there are people like you out here that watch whatever it is that I do. So thank you. Thank you both. And thanks to everybody that supports the channel. You guys know I'm appreciative. I ain't no ungrateful bitch out here. Ain't that right, Vesper? I ain't no ungrateful bitch out here. I'd be grateful. I'd be grateful because I truly know it could be zero, bro. It totally could be that. So let's not keep the likes at zero, however, gang. If you could, push that like button for me. If you're not subscribed to the channel, come on through and subscribe. We appreciate the love. We pushing the 4K every day. Might make it before the channel anniversary, so that would be kind of tight. Libra season, y'all. I am Leo, but my rising sign is Libra. I have my moon in Taurus for those who follow such things. So I definitely be feeling Libra season. I even like Libras very much as people. Like I get along with, appreciate and respect the Libras. So shout out to the Libras and Libra season because I be liking y'all. Because I feel like we got anyway. So anyway, you guys, so let me set up a little bit for this first story because it's that kind of story. And let me give the content warnings um for sex assault and murder, etc. But this is not a new story. Chances are you've actually heard about this story coming out of Baltimore City this week, where 26-year-old Pavla LaPage was murdered in her Baltimore apartment. And then there was a manhunt for, I'm going to say alleged because I have to CYA, but her alleged killer, even though I'll get to that in just a bit. The story made national headlines because Pavla, a young girl, 26 years old, CEO of Eco Maps, was listed as Forbes 30 under 30. She was on that list. And, so obviously, um, her race and gender and class factored heavily here into the way that this story was covered and contrasted against her alleged killer, a violent black man. This was something that the American media couldn't wait to get its hands into. But I hope they get into it a little bit more than just the surface things. So, Will, if we could please kick me up. Yeah, thank you, my good man, my guy. So what has happened in recent days is just been not shocking, but levels of madness that only the 21st century could bring its version of. So Pavla's alleged killer, 32-year-old Jason Billingsley, was apprehended after being on the lam for not Pavla's murder per se. Initially, Jason Billingsley was under surveillance or attempted to be under surveillance from the Baltimore City Police from an incident that happened just days prior to Pavla's murder, involving Billingsley allegedly making entry into a Edmondson Avenue apartment, which is in West Baltimore, under the guise of maintenance. This is what the charging documents say. It says that Billingsley claimed to be maintenance, entered the apartment where he handcuffed a male occupant and then apparently raped a female occupant and attempted to set them both on fire. Okay. Um, Days before murdering Pavla, just days. And there are some very shocking aspects about the way the Baltimore City Police absolutely fumbled this and made this yet their latest example of how police are demonstrably horrible at public safety. They are intentionally horrible about disseminating information unless it serves their larger narrative, i.e., kids being unruly past curfew and this is why this is happening. Hold on. Y'all knew that this person, Jason Billingsley, was the most likely suspect in this crime. You had the ability to track him, was tracking him, and yet was unable to apprehend him before he eventually attacked and killed this young lady. There's a couple places I want us to go because I mean, when I tell you these people, and when I say these people, I mean the Baltimore power structure from the mayor Brandon Scott to Ivan Bates, the state's attorney, down to the acting commissioner Richard Worley. These people just showed out in the ways in which they deflected any responsibility for what was able to occur. And hold on, before we go on to some video, I did want to just give you guys a little bit more information about Jason Billingsley because prior to the attempted murder, arson, and rape that he is accused of, in addition to the murder of Pavla LaPere, Jason Billingsley in 2015 was convicted on first degree sex assault in Baltimore City. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison. At sentencing, the judge suspended all but 14 years of his sentence, and he was also given 5 years probation. Jason Billingsley was released after serving 7 years in jail. He was released October 2022. So he's been out of jail a year. We've had this conversation recently about how sex offenses are not treated seriously by the criminal and justice system. They're not taken seriously by police, who do a very piss poor job of investigating even reported sexual assaults and rapes. First of all, it is a grossly unreported crime because victims, understandably, survivors, understandably, do not want to deal with the criminal and justice system because it's a bunch of fucking bullshit and they know that. Or they feel as though they won't be believed, or they've been threatened into silence, or any number of reasons, right? But police generally do a very bad job of closing these cases. And for someone like Jason Billingsley to have been sentenced, to have legitimately earned his 30-year sentence, and hold on, let me tell you guys specifically what he was accused of doing in 2015, because I don't see how, judges and perhaps to some extent even prosecutors, but in this case, in his 2015 conviction, it definitely seems as though this was judicial discretion in terms of suspending 16 of his 30-year sentence. It said Bill, this is who is reporting this. I think this is the Sun. Yes. Okay. It says Billingsley pleaded guilty in 2015 in Baltimore Circuit Court to first degree sex offense and was sentenced to 30 years in prison with all but 14 years suspended plus 5 years probation. It says that he threatened to shoot a woman, he strangled her, he forced her to perform a sex act, and then stole $53 from her wallet. So that was his first conviction. He was also placed on the sex offender registry. So he gets released October 2022 because prosecutors were able to wait, hold on, let me not get ahead of myself, because I do want us to check out the press conference from the acting commissioner of Baltimore Police. And I just want you to hear the way in which the police don't accept accountability. They admit that they were just almost got him. We missed him by this much. Is going to be the tone struck by the Baltimore Police Commissioner. We missed him by this much, and it's not our fault because it was the press conference. If he didn't know that he was wanted, if we didn't alert the public that this man was wanted, we weren't going to be able to use all of our technology to catch him. That we were already unable to produce results in the form of his capture. So anyway, let's go to the tape, Will, brother, if we could. And my bad, Will, can you just run those two clips back to back, if you don't mind?
Confirm in reference to this incident and the reference to the incident on September 29th, right now all the indications are that this was not a random act of violence. We have information to believe that the victims from Edmondson Avenue were targeted by the suspect, that the suspect knew the victims, and he went into that location for a criminal reason. We know that the victim and suspect were known to each other. Additionally, we know that the suspect did not break into the building as he worked at that location. Through witness testimony and surveillance, we were able to develop the identity of the suspect, and a warrant was issued for him for Edmondson Avenue within hours. I can confirm that the warrant was a priority, and we brought in our law enforcement partners from the U.S. Marshals, as well as a flyer was distributed to every single officer in the Baltimore Police Departments. Our detectives, alongside our partners at the Marshals, were monitoring and surveilling to apprehend the suspect. This includes tracking his phone, looking at financial transactions, looking at social media, surveilling known addresses, speaking to multiple witnesses, and listening to his previous jail calls. Additionally, there were several instances in which we were able to track a close proximity of his location. However, he was still able to elude. As a matter of fact, we had the press conference the other day about Ms. LaPere's death. We were delayed that press conference because we were within about 88 meters of capturing the suspect, but he was able to elude our capture. We knew early on that the risk was, when we went public, that the suspect would go underground, which is exactly what he did. As soon as the news conference happened the other day, he basically left the location where he was at. We did a search warrant at one location. He had just left because he saw the news conference. In reference to the homicide of Ms. LaPere, we are still processing all evidence to determine exactly what occurred. We do know that there was no forced entry in the apartment building, as this was a secured building. We don't know if there are any connections previously to Ms. LaPere or Mr. Billingsley. This is what we will continue to investigate, as well as the incident on Edmondson Avenue.
So there's a couple things you need to know here about the kind of resources that Baltimore City Police are working with, okay? First of all, they have the City Watch camera program across the city. I think it's over 600 surveillance cameras, closed circuit TV cameras, in which they surveil the residents of Baltimore, okay? Um, in 2022, Baltimore City Council, I believe, approved nearly $1 million contract, $920,000, to upgrade what I believe it's called their Stingray. It's a cell phone tracking technology. It's some shit they can fly in the fucking air and snatch cell phones and intercept cell phones, right? Baltimore City Police are the most funded public agency in the city by far. we, as much as we talk about the disinvested state that Baltimore City public schools are in, and even Baltimore City infrastructure, the transportations, public transportation. So, like, all the rest of Baltimore is disinvested except for the fucking cops, right? And earlier this year, Baltimore police have already continued on a national stage to demonstrate why they are not deserving of not only the public funds, but none of the public trust with the mass shooting. We talked about that here on this show, in which I believe 30 people were shot, a couple people were killed. This after residents of Brooklyn Park made several repeated attempts to call 911 to try to let the Baltimore City Police know that the situation was getting a little rowdy. And the police looked over there. They said, "Nope, we ain't going over there." And they said, "We ain't going over there," and they didn't go over there. And they have been getting righteously dragged for that, but they need to also be getting righteously dragged for this, because they did they were singularly equipped to try to catch this man. Only them. They only the Baltimore City Police could have caught him. And they eventually, not they, but they caught him was down in PG County, actually, at the train station in Bowie, Maryland. But one of the things that really breaks my heart about this whole situation, you know, I absolutely feel bad for all the victims involved. Certainly the one that's gotten the most attention, because of who she is, what position she occupied socially. And I think that's the only reason you would have heard of a Jason Billingsley. Because truthfully, there are offenders like this that are allowed to repeat and do unspeakable things to people in the community, to traumatize people in the community, and they don't. It does not make national news. You know what I mean? I empathize for this young lady deeply and for her family, but can still simultaneously say that the reason we know this is because she was a status young white girl. And I think we might have done this on the Remix Morning Show some time ago, but I think it was the Columbia Journalism Review Institute. They came up with a scale of media coverage that victims are likely to receive based on their age, race, gender, and from where they either disappeared or where their crime against them occurred. And this story exactly checks out for that. The other part that I find just absolutely horrifying about this is the number of times that people who have proven themselves violent are allowed to continue to harm people in the community. And it's never until it crescendos at a point of, let's say, murder or multiple violent attacks against the people, then all of a sudden it's, oh, be on the lookout for. Let's talk about why anybody had to be on the lookout for Jason Billingsley. And I want to give some credit to Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost. There has been several attempts in the Maryland State Legislature to prevent, or pardon me, that allows people who have been convicted of so-called violent crimes to accumulate good behavior credits to be released. I think in the case of people who rape and murder, I don't think you should be able to work your way to an early release. I think if you are convicted of rape, sexual assault, child molestation, child abuse, and murder, I mean, you kind of got to stay. You kind of got to stay where you at, and you need to do the whole thing. People who carry guns and maybe even shoot guns, I don't even take them necessarily as violent, especially people who get convicted of simply gun possession. I don't think possessing a gun is a violent act. And I think in America, a lot of people are justified in carrying because you know, it's not an impossibility that you will find yourself in a self-defense situation. So I don't, if those kinds of folks can work up some good behavior credits, people who don't hurt kids and hurt the partners, or hurt random strangers in the world. Okay, but when it comes to the rapers and the murderers, dog, you might have to stay there. So anyway, Mackenzie Frost approached Governor Wes Moore. Wes fucking Moore. Wait till y'all hear this answer. Jesus Cristo. Like, whoa. When she asked specifically about these good behavior credits, and she asked him, was he going to whip the Maryland, the Maryland Democratic Legislative Caucus into actually advancing something that addresses this sort of gap in this policy. Let's take a look there.
Baltimore City leaders say that Jason Billingsley is a repeat violent offender, and we're pressing Governor Wes Moore to find out if he's going to demand lawmakers in Annapolis pass legislation to implement tougher penalties. Maryland laws under the microscope again. Jason Billingsley suspected of brutally killing Baltimore Tech CEO Pava LaPere at her apartment building. Despite being denied parole twice, Billingsley released in October 2022 after serving 2/3 of his sentence for first-degree sex offense.
In the state of Maryland, you can earn what's called diminution credits. It was more or less the systematic, to me, failure in terms of what happened.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates says the diminution credit system should be reevaluated, especially since in 2016, the Justice Reinvestment Act allowed Billingsley, who is a convicted sex offender, to tally up good behavior credits.
Maybe the legislature could maybe look at what first-degree sex offense or first-degree rape. Are these individuals still going to be eligible for diminution credits?
While touring Baltimore City Community College, we pressed Governor Wes Moore. When will we see you demand lawmakers take action to ensure that a suspect like this doesn't get released to commit another heinous crime like we saw?
Pava was a light, and she was a leader in our community. She was a leader in their tech community, and she was failed. I want results, and we've got to move on this because Pava was failed, and we have to do a better job of making sure we have laws in the books that are protecting our community and getting these violent offenders off of our streets.
There was a bill introduced during last session and several years prior that would have targeted violent repeat offenders, and it never moved. Will that change during next session?
I want to make sure that in the next session, and our administration will be working closely with the administration to make sure that we have bills that will make it to my desk that can be pushed, moved, and that I can sign that can make sure we're getting repeat violent offenders off of our streets.
Are you demanding the Democrats do that?
I'm going to be working with our legislature to ensure that we can have legislation that will move, make it to my desk, and that I will sign to make sure we're getting and keeping violent offenders off of our streets.
Not a direct answer from the governor about the Violent Firearms Offender Act, which called for tougher penalties for repeat violent offenders. Meanwhile, State Senator Antonio Hayes suggests narrowing who is allowed to be released under the diminution credit system. Would you support legislation that eliminates the good time served credits for someone in a situation like this?
It depends. When it comes to extreme levels of violence, I think that is something worth considering.
And remember, the bill targeting repeat violent offenders has been introduced year after year after year without movement. So it's unclear if 2024 will be any different. When asked about making changes to the diminution credit system, the governor's office says all options are on the table to ensure Maryland communities are safe. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
So now that that's like my second time listening to that package, let me pull back a little bit of the credit, a little bit of the platitudes I was laying upon Mackenzie Frost there. I just like it when people get in politicians' face. I'm a root for that every day. Even if Fox 45 is some absolute garbage, because and let me tell you why I'm withdrawing my praise. Well, first of all, I mean, this isn't really a question for Wes Moore. I mean, you can ask him the question. Fine, that's fair. He's the fucking governor. Yeah, ask him what you plan to do. But to his credit, even though his answer was meh, these are actually questions for Maryland state delegates and Maryland state senators, because it starts in the state house, right? Legislation needs to be introduced in order to address the issue. But let's talk about what the issue actually is. And again, Mackenzie Frost sort of conflating things, or maybe not making things clear. When she was talking about the violent offender, bill, it's violent firearms is what I believe the bill actually targets. And I don't see how a violent firearms legislation would have applied to Jason Billingsley, because each of the crimes he's accused of, including the one he was convicted of, it doesn't sound as though a gun was used. And I think that special set aside legislation policies need to be crafted to address sexual violent offenders and sexual violent repeat offenders, because there's a big gap here. And the focus usually is on gun and gun offensive, but y'all, people get killed and harmed in this country every day without the use of a gun. Jason Billingsley just showed you how it was done, right? What he's accused of doing on Emerson Avenue included rape and arson. He didn't shoot anybody. Attempted murder. But that's because he tried to set the people on fire, allegedly. I believe it, but allegedly, because journalist or whatever. So Pavla, tragically, is reported to have died from blunt force trauma and asphyxiation. He strangled her. So again, asking the governor about what to do about the violent repeat firearms offenders, doesn't do shit to address what happened to this young woman. So very disingenuous reporting there from Mackenzie Frost. But I like get in Westmore face, but get your shit better. Put that shit together a little better next time you get in Wesley face. But get in Wesley face though. Make no mistake about that. You guys, it's not taken seriously, y'all. My next story is also going to prove how sex assault really against everybody, against girls, against boys, against men, against women, is something that our society does not take seriously. And I think that, we are at a point in our civilization where I think it's time that we make explicit that people do not get to be repeat traumatizers. I need to know what the number is, because it seems as though folks get the opportunity to traumatize one person. Perhaps they get caught, perhaps they get punished, perhaps they don't. But regardless, it never stops at one. It's always multiple. And I know that, sexual predatory behavior is something that can be identified via, psychological examination. And I am not of the belief that repeat sex offenders can be rehabilitated. But I don't think that rehabilitation is the solution. Not to say I think that jail is the solution, because really I think the solution is disappearing these motherfuckers, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I just don't believe that you get to ruin multiple people's lives. I don't think that you should get repeat opportunities to get to do that. Like, something must be done with you. Because learn, quote, learn, learn. You can't learn a motherfucker who likes to inflict harm. He like that shit. So what should be done with him? I tell you, suspending half of his fucking 30-year prison sentence is absolutely not what should be done with him. Letting him out of jail because he pushed that broom around for 7 years and getting him out after only serving 7 years, absolutely not the answer. I would like to implore the Maryland State Legislature, please, introduce some very specific policy when it comes to the sentencing guidelines for judges. There needs to be some sort, that 30 should have been mandatory. Mandatory. Doing the 30 at the minimum. And see what he talking like after 30 years. Is he talking better? Is he acting better? Because if he gets out, he's going to do it again. And people can argue, we're talking about a relatively small part of the population, people who are sexual predators. That is true. But they harm exponentially more than their existence, right? One sexual offender, one rapist, one abuser can abuse 5, 10, 50. I do not think, and we know this, that the criminal justice system as it is equipped to do anything about it. It's quite clear that in our society generally, we don't take sexual violence seriously. We don't take it seriously against children. We don't take it seriously against women. We do not take it seriously against men. And I'm a little exhausted. I'm a little tired of living in a society that is not taking any meaningful steps to comprehensively address its issues with tolerating on some level or excusing or diminishing with little sentences or not appropriate sentences those who commit these acts repeatedly against us out here in the community. I do wish we had a little secret squad of assassins. Let me not mince words. I do wish we had a little secret squad of assassins that were, finding the sex abusers and getting them after one go round, baby. And there can be certain circumstances in which can be considered. Certainly the age of the predator themselves, whether or not they themselves are survivors of assault, which more than likely they are. But I don't think that gives you an excuse. That's not a fucking excuse. That's not a justification. That's not a free pass. It's a reason. It's a factor. It's something to be considered, but that ain't no pass. Anyway, so I think the assassins need to find them and go get them. And maybe do what they are specialized and highly trained to do. So that's just a thought. How do you recruit for something like that? Let me shut up. For them alphabet boys come to my house for real. Well, Miss Brown, we understand that you were online trying to organize a terrorist plot against sexual abusers. Well, fuck, officer, is that wrong? Is that against the law? Oh man, well it shouldn't be. I didn't name names. We do that on a future episode. Anyway, guys, listen, this person, Jason Billingsley, is going to be made quite the example. He absolutely embarrassed the Baltimore City Police by remaining on the lam for as long as he did. He exposed single-handedly. I mean, not for the first time or ever, or even the first time this year or whatever, but he exposed this week how useless and obsolete and antiquated and incompetent and fucking Barney fucking Fife thumbs up their asses dickheads that the Baltimore City Police are. That they had all the tools and equipment and resources available to find and track one person. And they even admitted the motherfucker was in 88 meters. How the fuck did y'all? How the fuck? But Jason Billingsley helped to expose that once again, that the Baltimore police do not keep the public safe. Somebody will get the opportunity to do attempted murder, rape, arson, and murder before being apprehended. Or, I'm sorry, he got to do attempted murder, rape, and arson before. No, I'm sorry. No, that's correct. He got to do all those things plus what he did to Pavla before the police actually put out a public advisory to be aware of him. So the police do not keep us safe. I hope the community, we do what we can to keep each other safe out here. Let me take a quick little break, if y'all don't mind. If you don't mind, baby. Before I get into my next story about how nobody give a fuck about us. No, I might. Who is the hell is my damn local delegate? I gotta look that up. Somebody need to bring this shit up, man. I'm sorry. I don't. It makes me very uncomfortable that a person who survived a sex assault and a strangling got to watch her assailant get half his sentence suspended. Like that don't sit well with me. I don't think judges should do that. And judges are elected in Maryland. Maybe I should run for judge. Maybe I should be a judge. I'm giving all the sex offenders life. Don't come in my courtroom. and you done fucking abuse somebody, you're going to jail. I'm going to, me personally, I'm going to put you to jail. And I'm telling you, there is where I have not a lot of sympathy. I feel sympathy for people who are wrongly accused, of course. I know the police do piss poor investigations. I know the police railroad people all the time. There are people sitting in jail right now convicted of specifically sexual assault crimes that they absolutely did not commit. That is all the fault of the system. That is completely the fault of law enforcement. But for every proven one, dog, don't come in my courtroom with that bullshit. Your ass is getting the max. No diminution credits, my guy or my girl. You know, I would be an equal opportunity a sentencer of abusers. I would absolutely give a woman the max for abusing anybody. And to be honest, guys, one thing I want to say just off the whatever. I need to do some more research about survivors, male survivors of sex assault. And this actually leads me into my next story. In content warning for um sex assault and inaction on behalf of authorities because it was announced today, actually, Friday, the culmination, or at least the legal culmination, of what has been a 5-year saga coming out of Damascus High School in Montgomery County, Maryland. Damascus, just for some background information, like, you know, when we say tree lined streets, okay, like, I mean, there's some nice shit in Maryland, some nice shit in Maryland. Damascus is kind of up there on some real nice tree lined streets, like acre lots. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's money in Mo County, and then the money resides. Damascus, Poolsville. I mean, just I can't remember if I got lost or why was I driving out there or what. Did I know somebody out there? Hey, Seuss. But anyway, out Poolsville, Damascus, these houses are massive, man. These motherfuckers got horses and shit. Like, we talking about a real high income area, right? So this is also likely a reason why this story got some national attention, because of the age, race, gender, and class status of the victims. So 5 years ago in 2018, it made national news that junior varsity football players at the Damascus High School football team, 5 of them were accused of sexually assaulting younger teammates in a locker room. It was also alleged that this was a practice, they called it brooming, right? Some characterize all this shit as hazing. This is not hazing. Okay, this is sex assault. This is rape. But it was alleged that this was a practice that has gone on in this football program for a long time. These were apparently not the first incidents or the first time that freshman football players had been assaulted in this way, and that allegedly adults were aware of this kind of behavior and that this went on in this school. Okay. It made national news when a couple of the survivors came forward, and it resulted in a lot of resignations. But in terms of convictions, I believe 4 out of the 5 alleged perpetrators, well, I can't call them alleged, they were charged with rape, and they were initially charged as adults, but then their cases were remanded back to juvenile court, where I believe they did receive juvenile convictions for these charges. But and before I move forward, let me back up, because I do want to play, which is actually an editorial. I normally don't play editorials. I usually don't play comments from the commentators, but I thought this guy, is this Tim Wise? No, it's not Tim Wise. Somebody else. We'll get it. Hold on. If you could cue that up for me, Will. I appreciated this guy's outrage at this story, because like I said, this happened in 2018. It's been 5 years since this happened. And there was a number of events that have come up since today's announcement regarding a settlement of a lawsuit. But Montgomery County Public School System has fervently denied any responsibility in this incident. And when Tim Wise goes into who knew what when, uh, maybe you won't be surprised, but you should be aghast and somewhat infuriated. So let's take a look at this from WUSA 9.
Follow up tonight on the alleged locker room rape case at Damascus High School in Montgomery County. 4 freshman football players say sophomores used brooms to sexually assault them back in 2018. And today, lawyers for the alleged victims filed lawsuits. They claim the Montgomery County Board of Education, coaches, and principals at the school all knew about the alleged sexual assault, but turned a blind eye. Our Mike Wise has been following this story closely. He joins us this evening with his take. Mike?
Thank you, Larry. Like many parents of kids who play youth sports in Maryland, I was sickened by the story of the 14 and 15-year-old boys sexually assaulted by their junior varsity football teammates 15 months ago. It's bad enough Damascus high school officials may have known and ignored warnings about a deviant hazing ritual called brooming. That's what the parents of 3 of the players assaulted claimed in their lawsuit filed Thursday morning in Montgomery County Circuit Court. It's even worse that the then Damascus principal is alleged to have called a meeting over the school's intercom for about 25 players after finding out about the incident. After berating everyone, including victims that were present, she is said to have actually accused the kids of, quote, ruining Coach Colbert's winning streak. Casey Krause has since transferred schools, but if that's true, I wouldn't let her work in education again. 4 of the perpetrators, all 14 or 15 years old, pled guilty in juvenile court last year. The AD and JV coach were relieved of their duties. The varsity coach, Eric Wallach, resigned last month but still works at the school as a teacher. All the dominoes are falling except one. See, the most disturbing part of the complaint talks about a culture of allowing student athletes to victimize other student athletes that was purportedly discussed among parents at parties. Think about that for a second. Parents at parties allegedly discussed a program where, quote, many freshman football players were too afraid to change their clothes in the locker room after practices and/or games for fear of being broomed. That's just not deliberate indifference. No, that's parental neglect. That should be a criminal offense. For all the wrong-headed decision-making by school officials that creates a culture like this, the fact that some of the parents might have been enablers makes you want to confront them too. It makes you want to put them on the stand and ask simply, how in the hell do you raise your kids to think sexually assaulting their teammates is okay? I'm Mike Wise, a youth sports parent in Maryland. Feel free to email me your opinion at mwise@wsa9.com. Hit me up on Twitter at Mike Wise Guy, or ask us anything on the show at the Q&A at wsa9.com. Larry?
So I appreciate the fire in which Mr. Wise there delivered his editorial. And I appreciate the details that he shared there and the question that he asked, about the parents, how do you raise your child to think that, sexual violence is okay? And I have to counter with, it's not 100% in the parents' raising of the child. It is the messages that children receive from our larger society. And it's really a damning reflection to the rest of us that a 15-year-old can grasp that the use of sexual violence to wield power and dominance, to instill fear and intimidation. At 15, these young boys knew that. Do I think that their fathers were taking them in the garage and showing them how to broom their teammates? I don't believe that. I don't fucking know at the end of the day. But no, I think that kids can pick up and it's not subtle and it's not subliminal. And and it's not to say that this is 100% gendered, because I know under the guise of hazing, young people exploit each other sexually all the time, or sometimes allow themselves to be exploited sexually under the auspices of gaining entrance or gaining acceptance into some sort of, social entity, right? Be it an organization like a sorority or a fraternity, or to build camaraderie on your sports team. Like, this shit is not an anomaly. This shit happens a lot of places, right? It happens a lot of places, and it doesn't get the amount of attention that this story got. Let me tell you what's the latest here. Will, if you could please pull up the 7JLA piece, because this is the news that Montgomery County Public Schools to pay $9.7 million in settlement over 2018 Damascus High School sexual assault case. Um, and that is what people's suffering sometimes, and this is unusual, to be honest. Like, most survivors of sex abuse and sex assault do not receive any sort of compensation. They usually don't even get their accuser prosecuted, let alone convicted, let alone sentenced to an appropriate time in jail, right? But 4 of the abuse survivors from that JV football team filed suit not only against Montgomery County Public Schools, but they sued the former principal, they sued the JV football coach, they sued the athletic director, they sued a lot of people personally, which I'm like, yup, sue all them motherfuckers, sue them all. That is another way, y'all. I mean, how do children receive these messages that sexual violence and dominance is an acceptable form of engaging with people? Because people cover up, they make excuses, they ignore, they look the other way. Like I said, it's been alleged that this shit was going on in Damascus High School's football locker room for years. And one of the things that Montgomery County Public Schools, or it was asserted that part of the reason why this assault occurred is because the children lacked supervision in the locker room. Let me say this. I was a high school athlete, and I routinely changed clothes in the locker room. I did not want my fucking coach in the locker room. I'm even talking about my woman coach, my lady coach. Because can we reduce the amount of people looking? You know what I'm saying? Can we keep the number of folks that are potentially, gazing my way, but in the paranoid mind of a teenager thinks that everybody's looking at them, right? Let's keep this to as many people as necessary, and the adult is not really necessary. Now, I would imagine girls' locker room behavior might be a little different than boys' locker room behavior. I played sports 3 out of 4 years. Nothing weird ever happened in the girls' locker room. No one took my bra, no one stole my panties, like no one ever tried to do any fucking weird shit on some physical touching or anything like that. It was all business in the girls' locker room. But apparently the boys' locker rooms operate a little different. You can keep that up there, Will. Sorry, I was running my yam. And getting to that because, like I said, MCPS, Montgomery County Public Schools, have denied all responsibility, but they have agreed to this $9.7 million settlement to resolve all this litigation that has been ongoing for 5 years. And guys, that is likely where this ends. I would imagine it does not end in the lives and in the minds of these survivors, these young folks. But it is just a reminder of a couple of things. That, number one, children can harm other children. Okay. It's important that we understand that these kids in the 21st century have been exposed to so much normalized violence and sexual violence that they, I believe, have a warped sense of reality and have a dulled sense of empathy and compassion for other people. Sometimes it can be a pack mentality with some of these young folks. And y'all, yeah, if y'all haven't noticed, I'm making deliberate efforts not to just lay this at the feet of boys and men. Cause I don't think I have to. Like, we can acknowledge that, all people harm. Yeah. I don't know about this shit though. You know what I'm saying? The last incident that I can think of that made national news involving someone being assaulted with a broomstick was those fucking asshole NYPD officers who assaulted, I believe it was Abner Louima. And not to say to girls and women, don't do fucking weird shit with objects and etc. But goddamn, I don't see, I do not be seeing the commiserate headlines, man. Regardless, the messages are getting through. Domination, intimidation through sexual means, through sexual violence without people's consent is something that this generation, at least parts of them, are picking up as being normalized and okay. And this is where I put out the call. You know what I'm saying? Like, we actually can stop this. I really do believe that. That's why I talk about it so much, because I want subsequent generations of everybody. I speak from the perspective of a woman who was once a girl, so I feel a natural affinity and kinship for women and girls. So that's why I speak so much about women and girls. But cases like these bring into refocus the way that young boys and men are harmed. And there needs to not only be accountability, but there needs to be a preemptive intervention with these boys about what is acceptable, what is actual roughhousing, and what constitutes as rape and sex assault. I think a frank discussion about consent could have went a long way with some of these football players. Maybe they would have understood that their teammates were not consenting to any of this. So as we can see clearly, talking to young folks about consent can save young boys and girls from being traumatized. And we have to, and I applaud the parents of these victims and the survivors, because I can't imagine what it's like to be a teenage boy. We, as much as LGBTQ folks and culture have been accepted in our culture now, probably more than ever, America is still ragingly homophobic, okay? Like, ragingly homophobic, which is, I imagine, the reason, the driving reason why a lot of men do not report sexual assaults, because they feel emasculated, they feel that they may not be believed. And if they are hetero or not gay, like, they feel as though they will be slurred by being labeled as gay because a man was able to take advantage of them and assault them. And I would like for that mentality to die also. Like, these young folks, these young men and boys need to understand that they have autonomy. People do not have a right to violate them. They also have to give consent. Like, men and boys should also be taught that you can give consent. Your consent should be obtained. Should also be obtained, right? And a non-consensual sexual encounter is assault and rape. And young boys and men need to be taught that. They need to understand that. And all the stigma around them reporting these things. And again, and I'm not even saying reporting is the fucking solution, because we know how poorly investigated and prosecuted so many sex assault crimes are, especially against men, right? So what is the solution? Well, I submit to my prior my prior motion, Your Honor. Disappear these fucking predatory ass motherfuckers. Now, in the case of these kids specifically at Damascus, I don't think that they should be disappeared under my standard of rule, right? If I rule the world. I wouldn't I disagree with throwing children away. Okay. I wholly disagree with that. I absolutely think that children, teenagers in this respect, should absolutely be given an opportunity for rehabilitation. But if it were up to me, they would be highly monitored, right? And I'm talking not only just monitored, I mean, like, I'm gonna take all the fun out your fucking 20s, young man. You gonna be on a ton of surveillance, okay? Because you've proven that you are susceptible to predatory and violent behavior. I believe the young people should get a chance to learn and grow, but that learning and growing has an expiration date. You know what I'm saying? And we can debate whether or not 18-year-olds or 21-year-olds or 25-year-olds are adults. That is an age marker that we can figure out. But for a significant amount of time, we keeping a close eye on you, and doing routine psychological tests on you, and checking in with people that know you, because unfortunately, sexual predation and violence are not one-offs. And the leading indicators start in childhood and puberty and during the teenage years about potential future indicators. So I think that kids should be given another chance, but not without serious consequence, not without serious mental health and emotional health intervention, behavioral monitoring, and the like, and made sure that they themselves are given special instruction and counseling, not only about the error of their behavior. They can't just be contrite or remorse for it. You need to know why you were motivated to do such a thing to begin with, and then the steps need to be taken for you to unlearn that. You know what I'm saying? It's not just this ain't just a I'm sorry, motherfucker. Like, you need to know not just what you did wrong, but why. What influenced this behavior? What drove this behavior? And it's not that, well, little Joey said, no, fuck that. You did shit too. And if you didn't do it, you watched. And that is also culpability, in my opinion. So anyway, y'all, I want to keep talking about some of these situations and these incidents to, again, just demonstrate, number one, the level of hypocrisy, that America specifically says when that it cares about, number one, the welfare of children, and number two, that the police must be funded to be the guarantors, the absolute guarantors of public safety, when day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out, decade in and decade out, the police keep proving to us that they ain't shit. When they had one fucking job, you had one fucking job. You was catching one guy. You wasn't catching the fucking A team out here, dog. You was catching one dude, Baltimore City Police, and you let him run amok. A young girl was murdered on your watch. Like, there's unfortunately no way around that. There is no way around that. So let that be a glaring, can't even call it an embarrassment, because some people do not embarrass easily, and I don't think the police have any shame in the way that they handle certain things. So anyway, gang, what time is it? I'm gonna push off. We'll push along here. Let me say what's up to the folks. Gang, if you would like to support the channel, let me show you the ways. BIDWKB, Cash App, Venmo, excuse me, PayPal, patreon.com/BIDWKB. Thank you so much to everybody that supports the platform in ways big and small. We certainly appreciate it. The free support is always welcome and appreciated. So showing up, giving the video a like, leaving a comment, even if you just say comment, just any sort of engagement is deeply appreciated. So we all the support is welcome here. So is today Friday? Sorry, my time. Today is Friday. Right. Be mindful, everybody. It's the full moon out tonight. Supermoon. Was the supermoon this morning or will it be tonight? Regardless, shit happens around the full moon, okay? So I just want y'all, if you're going out tonight, be careful because for one, we live in America and it is a madhouse, right? We live in the craziest country on the planet. Nobody else knows these fucking America psychotic societal blues like we know this shit, right? So America's fucking crazy. And on a full moon, people do develop lunacy, right? It's a legit thing. It's documented. They've made written reports about the shit. It's some real shit. So if you're going out tonight, please watch your back. Head on a swivel. Do not fuck around. If you are in public, you live in the United States of America. They're not to say be out here, be scared and shit, but like I said, be on your P's and Q's. That's about, yeah. I'd be foolish to not suggest that you do not heed the times that we are in. Franny France, thank you so much for showing up with us on tonight. Oh, thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Holly. Who else is in here? Donnie's in here. What's up? Kiana, who is that? Is that Chichi Macha? No. It's not. I'm sorry. Who else is in here? Shout out. Oh, Tasia. Hey, Tasia. Oh, wait, what is this? Oh, Nat. Thank you so much, Nat A, for becoming a new member. I appreciate that. Somebody else became a new member the other day, and I apologize for not acknowledging it or writing it down. My deepest. You guys, I don't be ignoring the chat. I do not read the chat in real time because I will quickly lose focus and then I'll get grumpy because I'm missing shit. What's up, Yipper99? So I do see the things that you guys do and say later. But it's hard for me to watch it in real time and do this extemporaneous speaking that Howard Community College failed me twice. Twice. They failed me twice. Twice for public speaking. Lord have mercy. Yeah, we might have to go back up there and get that revised northward. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for your support. Thank you guys for checking us out. Don't forget, go support Black Power Media. Go subscribe to Black Power Media. Engage, subscribe, Status Quo News. Engage, subscribe to Revolutionary Blackout Network. Engage, subscribe to Kalechi Okafor. Who else? Oh, specifically on BPM, definitely go check out Sister Erica and Amber with Brokish. And what it was another person, John. I can't remember who it was. Well, fuck, I done forgot. Whatever. So anyway, y'all have a good and safe weekend. The full moon is out here. Be careful. On behalf of Will and Molly, thank you guys so much. See you later. Bye bye. See y'all.